G'day, my name's Ant and I'm from the Tasmanian Bike Collective. Over the past 7 years we've restored nearly 1,000 plus bikes, and so today I thought we'd give you a bit of a rundown of what to look for when you are looking at a second-hand bike. In particular, there's some things that could cost you a lot of money, but here's some ways to see what's going on with the bike and then investigate further. So firstly, I wanted to look at drivetrain wear. When you're purchasing a bike, obviously it's an expensive part of the bike, and if it's really worn, then it's going to throw you about quite a few $100s to replace all your drivetrain. So my recommendation is to always have one of these. It's a chain checker. There's lots out there on the market, and what they do is just check the wear on the chain. So it's pretty basic. You put it on, follow the instructions per your actual chain checker, and it'll give you a wear point on the chain. Now what you're looking for is that 0.75, and if it's beyond 0.75, then we know we need to replace it. And what you'd be replacing is you'd be replacing the whole cassette, the whole chain, and your chainring. So if it's under that 0.75, you know you've still got wear left and you'll have life left in that drivetrain. Secondly, now I want to look at wheels, and if a wheel's been particularly worn, there's going to be a few telltale signs. So give it a good spin, check for obvious big buckles in there. If it's not too out of alignment, that's all right. A bit of movement's normal. And then we're going to check the spoke tension. So you want to see that the spoke's pretty even, tensioned around, no really loose or overly tight ones. If there are, then that might be an indication that the wheel's particularly buckled or something else is going on and it's worth investigating further. All right, now let's have a quick look at if there's any lateral sideways movement, any unruly creaks or anything that's come in. So one way we can do that is just by leaning it over and putting a bit of sideways force through the bike. And if you hear cracks, creaks, then it might be worth investigating further what that is. Another way is just by grabbing it and doing sideways movements, and if there's any clunks or movement there, again it's worth investigating further. So with your bottom bracket and your headset, you both want to check that there's no big wobbles, movements in there, that it spins pretty freely. Same up here on your headset stem, you particularly don't want that back and forth movement, and you just want to check it's not really grindy or notchy. Again, they're not expensive to fix, but it could be a sign that the bike hasn't been well maintained or looked after. So the suspension, if you have rear suspension, you're just visually checking for any wear. Little chips and things don't matter so much, but actually a rub or wear mark is more of a telltale sign that something's going on. You want to just press down gently, put your full weight onto it, and just feel the movement, feel that it's smooth, it's not rough, and that'll also give you a bit of feeling for the pivot bearings as well. And then similar on the front, again, check for your wear marks, especially around your seals. Like here, a couple of tiny little paint chips aren't going to matter. And again, just through gently pushing down and releasing, you should feel if there's any sort of resistance in it, any sort of grindiness or catching on the seals. So moving on to brakes now, you want to check your lever feels, that they feel really solid, not too much sponginess. There'll be a little bit of give, but you want to make sure there's a good contact point there, and it doesn't feel really spongy. Then you just want to hold it on and make sure that's really holding the wheel, and obviously you can test that when you actually ride as well. And then also just have a look at your rotors. Make sure when you spin it there's no big movement there in the rotors. So now moving on to gears, we're going to look at the rear derailleur in particular. We want that to be straight and in line. So we're looking at the alignment down here. You don't want twists or bends or anything in there, so you want a pretty straight line. And then when you're test riding it, make sure you change each gear one at a time, up the cassette, down the cassette, each one at a time with a bit of pressure on the pedals, and that'll tell you how smooth those gears are going. Finally, the dropper seat post, a bit similar to the suspension. You just want to be looking for wear around, especially at the back, but anywhere around that seal area. You want to check that it's smooth operating, it's not grindy or catching through that, and that should be good. So also remember, when you're doing the test ride, really check your suspension. Actually really give it a good, when you're out there riding, really give it a really good few bounces around and make sure that it's going in, and especially that rebound rate's good as well. But thank you for listening today. All these hints and tips are just guides to help. It doesn't mean you shouldn't buy the bike, it just might mean you need to investigate a bit further of what's going on. But hopefully that helps, and if you've got other ideas, leave them in the comments. And it would be great to hear your thoughts as well. And don't forget to like and share the Bike Collective. Cheers.